This week on Wordfence Security News, a WordPress font optimization plugin exploited before the developer even had a patch out, Oracle's business software back under attack, this time eBusiness Suite's payment system, attackers planning backdoors inside engineering software used by manufacturers and defense contractors, ransomware crews pick up Microsoft's leaked BlueHammer Defender Flaw, a remote support tool's login flaw giving attackers a path to steal cloud, source code, and AI credentials, and a clean GitHub repo with no malware at all, showing how an AI coding agent can still be tricked into opening a backdoor. This is Wordfence Security News. I'm Alex Thomas. Our top story starts with a plugin most site owners never think twice about. OMGF, short for Optimize My Google Fonts, lets WordPress sites host Google Fonts locally instead of pulling them from Google servers for speed and privacy. The Pro version adds extra optimization features, including a way to cache style sheets from other websites. That caching feature is where the problem lies. OMGF Pro scans a page for references to outside style sheets and automatically fetches and saves a copy. And that scan isn't picky about where on the page the reference comes from or what kind of file comes back. An attacker can plant that reference somewhere the site reflects user input back onto the page, a search box for example, then point it at a file they control, and OMGF Pro will fetch that file and save it straight into the site's upload folder. Exploitation doesn't require a login, and no check is done on what type of file it actually is. If that file is a PHP script, all it takes to run is a second, equally unauthenticated request. Visiting the file's new web address directly executes it as code. This one came through our own bug bounty program. We began responsible disclosure with OMGF's developer on June 23rd and had a firewall rule protecting Wordfence Premium, Care, and Response customers the very next day. Attackers had a working exploit within about a day of that rule going out, while disclosure was still underway and before the developer's own public alert. It started small. Then, once the issue became more widely known, it scaled up fast. As of this recording, our firewall has logged more than 60,000 blocked attack attempts across nearly 8,000 sites. That early wave had a pattern to it too. Nearly half of the sites hit in those first hours were on German domains, and more than half were German, Austrian, or Swiss. That tracks with OMGF Pro's user base, which skews European and points to attackers going after known users of the plugin rather than scanning the internet at random. We also found that the same domain hosting this attack, elimitate.com, also turned up in a completely different WordPress plugin attack back in the spring, a similar file upload bug in the caching plugin called Breeze Cache. This was a different plugin and a different vulnerability, but the same attacker infrastructure months apart. The developer has since confirmed active exploitation, published indicators of compromise, and shipped a fix in version 5.2.7. If you or a client runs OMGF Pro, update to 5.2.7 now. Wordfence Premium, Care, and Response customers have been covered since June 24th. Free users get this rule on our standard 30-day schedule. Oracle patched this back in May. Attackers are exploiting it anyway, and more than 900 systems may still be wide open. Oracle's enterprise software has had a rough few weeks. We told you about attackers going after PeopleSoft not long ago. Now it's a different part of Oracle's business software, eBusiness Suite, and specifically the part that handles payments. The issue is almost absurdly simple to abuse. There's no real check on who's allowed to talk to Oracle Payments file transfer system, so anyone who knows the right request to send can take over Oracle Payments without any required account or password. Oracle actually patched this back in May, but over the weekend on June 27th, a security firm called Diffused caught someone actually using it against systems they monitor, and this wasn't random bot traffic. It looked deliberate and targeted, and there wasn't a public write-up of the bug floating around yet, which tells you whoever's behind it did their own homework. Shadow Server was tracking around 950 exposed Oracle EBS instances, though that does not mean all were vulnerable or compromised. And the PeopleSoft story from a few weeks back? That fallout is still happening. Nissan says this week that employee information, including social security numbers and bank details, may have been swept up in that earlier breach. If your business runs e-business suite, go make sure that May patch actually got applied, and if the payments piece is reachable from the open internet, you should fix that ASAP. Put it behind a VPN or at least restrict who's allowed to reach it. This is the first time a PTC product has ever landed on CISA's list of actively exploited vulnerabilities. PTC makes Windchill and FlexPLM, software that manufacturers, automakers, and aerospace and defense contractors use to manage all their engineering data, product designs, specs, and so on. There's a critical flaw in how these systems handle incoming data. If sent the right kind of malformed request, the software can execute attacker-supplied code without any login needed. PTC released patches in June. About a week later, they had to admit something worse. Attackers were already exploiting the flaw anyway, deploying JSP web shells on vulnerable systems, potentially giving attackers access to sensitive engineering and product lifecycle data. CISA added it to their exploited list on June 25th. If you're running Windchill or FlexPLM, patch it now and check whether you were already compromised. A researcher leaked this Microsoft vulnerability on purpose as a protest. Now ransomware gangs are using it. A few episodes back, we reported on BlueHammer, the name for a vulnerability affecting Microsoft's Defender software that was deliberately leaked by a researcher back in April as a protest against how Microsoft handles vulnerability reports. Microsoft patched it, but this week, CISA has flagged it as used in ransomware attacks. Nobody's named which group yet, but if your systems haven't been patched since April, we urge you to update now. The software IT teams use to remotely control computers has a login flaw, and attackers are using it to steal AI and cloud credentials. SimpleHelp is a remote monitoring and management software, the kind of tool IT teams and managed service providers use to reach into and control other people's computers from a distance, which is exactly why a critical flaw in it is such a big deal. On servers set up to let people log in through an outside identity provider, SimpleHelp failed to properly verify the cryptographic signature of identity tokens in affected OIDC configurations. So an attacker can just fake one and walk in with a fully trusted technician account, the kind of account built to remote into other people's machines without needing a password at all. It even sidesteps multi-factor authentication, since a new technician account gets to set up its own second factor the first time it signs in. Horizon 3.ai found and disclosed the bug back on June 12th, though SimpleHelp had actually already fixed it quietly in late May. That didn't stop attackers. Blackpoint Cyber caught them going after servers that hadn't updated yet, using that fake technician access to push out a loader called TaskWeaver, which in turn drops a new info stealer called Djinn onto the machine. Djinn goes after just about everything: cloud logins, SSH keys, source code credentials, saved browser data, and the tokens and configuration data tied to AI development tools and MCP-connected workflows. So if your organization runs SimpleHelp, get it updated right away, and take a look through your technician accounts for anyone who shouldn't be there. If you spot one, assume that account touched everything it could reach and start rotating credentials and cloud keys. Researchers just showed how an AI coding assistant can be tricked into opening a backdoor without a single line of malicious code. Our final story continues a theme we've hit a few times this year: attackers going after the tools developers use to write code. This one isn't a real-world campaign. It's a research demo from Mozilla's Odin team showing how a clean-looking GitHub repository could trick an AI coding agent into running attacker-controlled code. The chain works like this. A developer asks an agent, like Claude Code, to set up a cloned project. A package in the repo is built to fail on its first run, producing an error message that tells you to run a follow-up setup command. The agent, trying to help, runs it automatically. That command calls a script that pulls the real payload from a DNS-TXT record the attacker controls. It decodes it, runs it, and then the attacker has a shell running with the developer's own privileges, providing access to their API keys, their code, and their sessions. The point of the demo is that the agent was not trying to open a shell. It was trying to fix what looked like an ordinary setup error. Now, this is a research demo, not an attack seen in the wild yet, and it's not unique to one tool. Researchers say the same pattern can apply to other AI coding agents, not just Claude Code. But it's a good reminder. Don't let an agent run setup commands from a repo you haven't read yourself. Links to all the stories we covered today are in the description. Thanks for watching or listening. We're taking next week off, so we'll see you in 2 weeks on Wordfence Security News.